our community, we are working hard to do all the right things so that we can build wealth through our generations. We're going to cap it off this evening, and we're going to talk about leaving a legacy for your family. What you should do in order to leave that legacy, and answer a lot of questions that I've been receiving on this particular topic. So before we get started, I would like to have our president, Lysandra Banks, president of the Glen Ellyn Area Alumni Chapter, come on and provide an official welcome. Lysandra? Hi, Lysandra.
Good evening. Waiting on me. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Good evening. I'm Lysandra Banks. I am the chapter president of the Glen Ellyn Area Alumni Chapter. And on behalf of our entire membership, we would like to welcome you to this third and last installment of our Smart and Savvy Financial Series, Leaving a Legacy. I would like to thank our panelists tonight, who will provide us with a wealth of information to make sure that we provide security for our families and our loved ones. I want to also thank our Economic Development Chair, Frankie Jones, and the entire committee for all of their help this year in ensuring our communities are given the tools and information and resources necessary to be financially secure. So again, welcome to our series tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. So, Frankie.
Thank you, Lysandra. We appreciate you coming on to give that welcome. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. As we're going through the night, we've got questions that we've already received for the panel. However, for those of you who are participating, if you have additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we will make sure that we ask those questions of our panelists. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our MC, my sorority sister, Regina Lee. Regina? You're on mute, Soror.
Thank you, Frankie. Now I'm sure you guys can finally hear me. Okay. I am so grateful to be a part of this series. And so I am going to begin with introducing our panelists for tonight. We have two great panelists for tonight. And our first panelist is Eric D. Grant. I will tell you a little bit about Eric. Eric is the managing broker and financial advisor with Polaris Wealth Management, LLC, which is a firm that specializes in insurance, investments, and financial advisory services for individuals and businesses. He also expresses himself as a host of a 2-hour weekly national radio show, The Family Meeting, on WCPT, AM, and FM, and has been a contributor to various media outlets, including Black Enterprise, the Wall Street Journal, and WVON Radio. Eric is a Howard University alum with his Bachelor's of Business Administration degree in Finance and Insurance, and he is also a husband and a father. Say hello, Eric.
Hello.
All right. Our second panelist is Miss Wynette M. Head, Esquire. A little bit about Wynette is that she is a highly experienced attorney with an entrepreneurial spirit. Her career is marked by more than 20 years of successful practicing law in large and medium-sized law firms, Fortune 200 corporate law departments, and local government. She believes in using her legal skills to help those who could not otherwise afford high-quality legal services. And she's shown this by handling pro bono cases through such places as Cabrini Green Legal Aid and Metropolitan Children and Family Services. She also enjoys spending her time singing with her church choir, praise team, and she is also a proud member, and so am I, of Chicago Mass Choir. And she got her Juris Doctorate from Hamline University School of Law in St. Paul. She is a mother, mother-in-law, and also a grandmother. Say hello, Annette.
Hi, Regina. Hi, Eric. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Great, great. And so right now, what we'll do is just give you both a few minutes to give comments, opening comments, shall I say. So, and we'll go ahead and begin with Eric.
I thought you were going to go ladies first. And that's fine. I've been in business now for 36 years as a financial advisor, which gives me kind of a front row seat to some real generational wealth shenanigans that I hope I'm able to share tonight. But most importantly, or most interestingly, I read a study back in 2007, and it talked about the wealth of Black people in this country. And in 1865, it's estimated that people of color, formerly enslaved people, owned or controlled a little more than 1% of the nation's wealth. And the only thing surprising about that is that we had any wealth at all after having been wealth. But the real stark number is the number in 2005, where people of color own and control just over 2% of the nation's wealth. So between the conclusion of being enslaved in 2005, our wealth collectively grew 1%. And so some of that's due to the inability to accumulate wealth, and some of it's due to our inability to accumulate it and pass it to the next generation efficiently. So I look forward to talking about that tonight with you guys.
Great. That's some great information. Thank you for sharing that. And so then, Wynette, would you like to share some comments as well?
Sure. Those are sound like dire statistics that you just quoted, Eric. But there is hope. For those of you who read the Bible says that a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And I believe that that is a command for all of us. There is wealth in the Black community, but we're not doing a good job of passing it on, of leaving a legacy to our children's children. And so I hope to shed some light on that issue tonight and encourage you to put tools in place to help you pass along that generational wealth. So thank you.
Great, thank you. So before we get started, I just want us to just shake it off, because what we're going to have here is we're going to have a discussion, okay? It's just us and the ever so many people out there in YouTube land and Facebook and everywhere who's listening. And we so thank you guys for being here to listen. And I hope that we all can get some great knowledge, which I'm sure we will. And also make sure you put your questions into the chat. As we go through, we're gonna grab some of those questions to ask to our panelists as well. So let's just dive right in. Let's start with Eric. The question I have and would like to begin with, and also Wynette, feel free to chime in, with comments if you have a comment to the question as well. But let's begin with Eric. What is generational wealth, and why is it important to the Black community?
Wow. So, I mean, those of us who are learned, we understand the challenges of converting our being from actually being wealth to having the ability to accumulate wealth. And here, as we see a lot of talk about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where you had white mobs basically wipe out generational wealth potential from and kill hundreds of Black people in Tulsa. Generational wealth becomes the difference between an educated Black populace and not. There was an interview I did for the Wall Street Journal one time, I'll make this quick, where there was a white reporter who was surprised to see the savings rates of Black people. And I had to explain to her that it starts with coming out of a educational environment, usually college, where the Black graduate is going to graduate with significant debt, and the white graduate in likelihood won't. It begins there, trying to overcome all of the impediments that come with the lack of generational wealth. If more of our youth have wealth that they're inheriting, then they're able to come out of college without debt and start off faster. And all the studies show that the more wealth you have, the healthier you are physically, the more educated you are. All the social good about society is improved to the extent you have wealth and generational wealth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you want to go ahead and add to that?
Just generational wealth begins with the shift from being consumers, spending our money on things that do nothing but depreciate, to becoming producers, investors, those kinds of things. It's not about what you wear on your body. It's what you have in your bank account. It's the wealth that you accumulate over time to be able to pass it on. So we've got to get off that hamster wheel of spending everything we have and wearing everything we have on our bodies.
Yeah, I'm such an advocate of that, and I that's why I feel like this evening, this is so important for us to make sure that we have this discussion. So I hope we got a whole bunch of people and we can all get this great information that's flowing here. So our next question, we'll talk about estate planning. What are all the elements that goes into estate planning? And I'll go ahead and throw this one at you, Lynette. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Estate planning is one of those tools that you utilize to create and sustain the wealth that you have obtained over the years. A good estate plan consists of 4 documents, 5, but I will spend most of my time talking about 4 of them. A last will and testament. The last will and testament gives you control over how your assets are distributed. The next document is a power of attorney for healthcare. Life comes at you hard, and sometimes, we might find ourselves in the hospital for whatever reason, unable to manage our own affairs. And so it's important that you identify someone you trust to be able to handle your business, both from a personal assets standpoint and also from a healthcare standpoint, until you're able to handle your affairs. And that leads me to the power of attorney for property. Also identifying and designating someone to handle your business in the event of a short-term medical situation or mental or emotional situation. And then the last document is called a living will. It's a misnomer. The title is a misnomer. What it really is, it's a healthcare directive to your physician that says, if I become terminally ill with no, the doctors don't think there's going to be a cure and I'm ultimately going to die, do not perform any heroic measures, let me die with my dignity, this is my wish. And you're putting that in writing. So those 4 documents create your estate plan. Those 4 documents help you to manage your affairs while you're alive with the power of attorney documents and also at your death.
Okay.
So when I'm sorry, can I go?
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
actually, I was just
okay.
going to ask you if you feel free to jump in there to add to that, because I know this is one of your definite areas of expertise.
Yeah.
Please.
So what you talked about, Lynette, is really, really on point. That is what you do once you've decided that you want to put your affairs in order. And the reason that you do this is evident, and I bet you everybody listening now has seen this happen in churches when pastor dies or gets sick, right? And everybody starts to act a fool, and nobody wants to know where the money is, and are asking questions. And then they have a church revolt, and some of the people leave. It's all of that kind of stuff is the reason that you want to do or prepare the documents that Wynette talked about. It's because people get new when money's involved.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So as much as you think your kids are good and they know what to do and they're going to act right, unless and until you put it in writing, you can't tell how they're going to behave. This creates order in the face of chaos. And if you have seen what happens in churches and you think that's a shame, that should inspire you to do it for your household, because that's the same chaos that you introduce if you don't do what Wynette's talking about.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I've seen my share of those types of issues and arguments, that can take place when you don't have these documents in place. So definitely. How about we talk about what the difference is between a will and a trust? Maybe we'll go ahead and start with you, Eric. Would you like to begin in telling us the difference?
That's probably more Wynette's thing than me.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
I'm the one that tells people to do it, and I send them to Wynette.
Oh, well, Wynette, take it away.
Sure. Well, they do similar things. Let's talk about the will first. When you have a will, and then I'll contrast that at some point with what happens when you don't have a will. So a will allows you to determine, and people work hard for what they have and for the wealth that they have generated. And the last thing you want to see happen is that your wealth is given to someone to whom you never intended it to go. So you put a will in place to clearly identify the people who are to receive or to inherit your assets upon your death, be it your spouse, be it your children, your siblings, a favorite charity, things of that nature. You can include anything and everything in a will, because it's your way of saying, I worked hard for this, and now these are the people that I want to reap the benefits of my hard work. Conversely, if you don't have a will, that's called dying intestate. And then the state determines who gets your assets. For example, if you die without a will, your next of kin will receive your assets, your husband, your wife, your children, those kinds of things. If you don't have a spouse, if you don't have children, then your next of kin, for example, would be your parents, and then your parents would inherit that. But what if you had a favorite charity that you wanted to make sure, your church, your sorority? They would miss out because they're not considered your next of kin. And so, if you want people other than your next of kin to be able to enjoy some of those assets, it's a great thing to have a will. A trust is something similar. A trust is a way to avoid probate. If you create a trust and put all of your assets in a trust, you don't have to go to court. You don't have to open an estate in probate court, because your trust is the owner of the assets. And at the end of your life, the instructions within the trust, your trustee will go ahead and distribute the assets as you have determined in the trust. So it's a way to avoid probate. There are different kinds of trusts. There's a revocable trust that you, as the owner of the assets, get to take advantage of while you are alive. You are the trustee, but then at your death, then your assets pass on to the individuals or the organizations that you determine. And then there's called a irrevocable trust, and that is the asset protection tool that shields you from creditors and people who would want to sue you. That's a very detailed conversation, so I won't go into that. So that's basically the difference between a will and a trust. You avoid probate.
I think in almost all instances for my clients, I recommend that they get a will and a trust. But here's the thing though. having this discussion is a little like eating worms. I mean, you just don't want to do it. You don't want to have this conversation. And it's endemic in our society, in our community. Well, that's grown folk business, and we don't want to talk about that, or mama don't want to talk about dying. The reality is, though, that people have to face is life is a mission you can't get out of alive. It's going to happen. You can stave it off for a while, but it's going to happen. And the question is, do you want to stave off chaos? And it doesn't excuse, by the way, having these documents. It does not excuse having the conversation, which is the real barrier. That's where the problems arise, is when people don't have the conversations with their heirs about what they want. They can reiterate it in a trust, but you really should have the conversation. And that's a cultural shift that we need to adopt.
Yeah, most definitely. I definitely see that. So thank you for that. Now, we also have some questions that are coming in from the chat or YouTube. And Frankie, it appears that there is a question.
Yes, I have a
go ahead and
question.
share that?
Yes, and I wanted to stop you before you got too far. Wynette, the participants are asking you to repeat those 4 documents again. They go into estate planning.
The will, the last
Okay.
will and testament,
Okay.
power of attorney for healthcare, the
Mhm.
power of attorney for property, and what's called a living will. It is your healthcare directive to your physicians.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And the 5th one would be the trust.
A trust.
A trust, yes.
While we're on the subject, there is a question also in the chat. Why do you need a will and a trust?
Sometimes I draft a will and a trust for my clients. It's a different type of will, though. It's called a pour over will, which
Okay.
means that you're in your will, you are leaving everything to the trust.
Mhm.
And there again, it's sort of like the belt and suspenders approach to have both the will and the trust to avoid probate. When you just have a will, you have to file the will with the court.
Mhm.
There are a couple of other things you have to do. But when you have a trust, the trustee at your death is empowered to distribute your assets without having to go to court
Okay.
and file a case with the probate court.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't a will always contestable in court? I mean, it may not succeed, but isn't it always contestable?
You can certainly contest a will. Yeah.
Yeah.
The burden
Whereas-
of proof is the person who is contesting it, though.
Yeah.
So how do you prove mom wanted you to have the
Mhm.
act versus someone else if mom left it to that other person? I think the main point, the main reason why people contest is that they think that mom or dad or the deceased person was somehow not in their right mind when they drafted the will, because they never would have. I mean, if they had been in their right mind, they would never have left this house to my brother and cut me out, type thing. So they are for the most part challenging the mental capacity or the testamentary capacity, as it's called, of the person who drafted the will.
Yeah, I've seen them contested previously, and almost never does the person contesting prevail, but it just complicates things, whereas the trust
It does.
breezes straight through.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing that and we all see it on television where families are sometimes contest the will. So that's definitely important information to know about, that it can be contested and how that works. So another question would be, what happens if you or a member of your family does not have a will? Can you go a little bit more into that, Wynette? Because I heard you mention the word probate, and some people may not be as familiar with what that is. So maybe you can expound on that.
Sure. So it depends. If someone dies without a will or intestate, INTESTATE, if they die without a will, it just depends on the type of assets they have. If if your estate, which is everything you own, if your estate is valued under $100,000, there's not a real reason to have a will. Your assets will pass by filling out a small estate affidavit. But again, if there are assets that are dear to you, even though the total amount of your estate is under $100,000, if there's something in particular you want to leave to someone other than your immediate family, it's a good idea to have a will. So if you die without a will, then the court will look at your next of kin if your estate is over $100,000, and they will try to find your, if there's a spouse, that's automatic that they get 100% of your estate. Unless you have children, then it's 50-50. If you have no children, if you have no spouse, then your mom, your siblings, your aunts and uncles. The government doesn't take your assets like some people say. The government will do whatever it can to find your next of kin, even if it's a fifth cousin twice removed. Then that person or those people will then be the beneficiaries of all of your estate. That's when the fight starts, though. If you die without a will and you've got siblings, Wynette would have wanted me to have this. You can't have that. It's just a fight over who gets what. And so to save your family headache, because you're gonna be dead and gone in the arms of Jesus, and unbothered by all of this. But then it creates so much chaos within a family. I mean, I've heard of siblings not even speaking to each other for years over something that wasn't theirs to begin with. So to save people headache, heartache, and to reduce the chaos, put a will in place.
It's easy to do too.
It's so easy to do.
So
And you got to guide you through it. I mean, it's not this big. I think we're all, people are accustomed to watching these shows where you have these multi-millionaires and they've got so many assets that, there's these big fights, and then you have a formal reading of the will. And no, I'm talking real talk here. Okay. Just, you put the document in place, you control the situation, you control what's going on in the lives of those who you leave behind. And it just makes it so much better. And at the end of the day, siblings and family member can be cordial to each other because mom thought enough of us or sister thought enough of us to put something in place to bring peace of mind to everyone, to take the guesswork, to take the thinking out of it. And let's just be able to mourn our loved one without all the mess.
Definitely, most definitely. And so one of the questions is asking about who can help me determine what the steps are to take now. I think that would be an individual such as you, Eric, can help a person determine what the steps are to take. Can you go through a little bit of that on some of the steps? Like if a person doesn't have a will, doesn't have a trust, what would be some of the steps for them to take to even sit down to get these things done?
Well, so my work kind of begins when we're trying to organize the assets and get them ready to present to Wynette to draft the documents. But I don't see any reason at all, I'd be interested to hear this from you, Wynette, for anybody to not at least have a will, probably have a trust, outside of their inability to afford to pay Wynette to do a trust for them. But to answer your question, it is for me and my clients, it is having a discussion about what you have, what you want to get from what you have, and whatever's left, who you want to get it. It really is as simple as that. And sometimes people, like I said, don't want to talk about their own demise. It's a difficult conversation for various reasons. I get that too. I'm not trying to die no time soon. I get that. But the reality is that, again, you're not going to get out of this thing alive. You can't survive this mission. Right. It's going to happen. And so why not do something to eliminate the chaos, unless for some reason you like chaos and you think from heaven you want to watch your kids fight over stuff. If that's what you're about, don't waste either of our time, right, Burnett?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And if you don't want to protect what you've worked so hard to obtain, then okay, don't put a will, don't put an estate plan in place. But
I do think that there's a cultural piece to this that needs to be addressed. Part of it is for whatever reason not wanting to talk about dying. There's this other stream, though. You may have heard this too, Annette, where there are some among us who think, well, I had to work to get mine. They need to work to get theirs too. And so that's just sloppy. That's just sloppy. I mean, I think that we become a more progressive group, Black people, when we begin to work towards making sure the people after us don't have to endure what we have to endure. And that involves making sure that our assets, whatever we manage to accumulate, passes intact to the next generation. And if necessary, with instructions on how to make it better than what you provided to them.
Yeah.
Mine is that you can't take it with you. So, the attitude that I work hard for mine, I need to work hard for theirs. You can't take it with you. It's going to go somewhere. Somebody's going to get it.
And if you don't decide, then the government you don't like giving taxes to gets to decide. And is that what you want? I mean, let's be grown folks for a minute,
Most definitely. You guys are spitting the truth. So what do I say? Preach. Because this is so important for people to understand. You cannot take it with you. So we do have another question from the chat. And Brenda, if you could go ahead and share that question, if you will.
Yes, Regina. I do have a question from the question and answer phase, and it is it possible to place proceeds from a 401k or 403b into a trust in order to minimize taxes to the beneficiaries after your death?
Okay, so that is, can I take this one minute?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so that's a real tax time bomb. Okay. So you don't, well, first off, you cannot put retirement money, 401k, 403b, 457, any of those digits into a trust. You can name a trust as beneficiary, but I would encourage you not to do that unless you have special circumstances like a special needs child, something like that, because there are rules around the people who inherit qualified assets being able to stretch out the taxes due. If you name a trust as the beneficiary, all the taxes are due immediately. So, I would consult with someone like me and or Winnette and ask about which assets should be in a trust, which assets should be the trust should be the beneficiary for, because there is a bit of a tax time bomb embedded in there.
In addition, the insurance, 401k, any tool, financial tool that has a beneficiary attached to it will pass outside of a will. Those are things that you don't include in a will because they already have a beneficiary designation. So, as Eric was saying, there are rules attached to those.
Okay. Definitely. Now, did you have another question, Brenda, from the chat or no?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and move on. This stuff is just so excited. I may or may not look like it, but man, so important for us to know, all these specifics here. So here's one question that what if your parents own property? Does it automatically become a part of your inheritance? I'll throw that one at Winnette.
Does it automatically be? It depends on how it's on. It depends on who dies first. If your parents have acquired a property during the marriage, then they own it. Tenants by the entirety. It belongs to both of them. So if your mom passes away before dad, then the house automatically goes to dad. And then when dad passes away, it is an asset that passes down to the children. If it's paid in full. If it's not paid, then you're not the owner of it. The mortgage company owns the property. But hopefully there would be enough in the estate where you can liquidate those assets, pay off the mortgage, and then and obtain ownership. So if there was no will, then it goes to probate. It has to be probated. Whenever you have property that passes in a will, you do have to go to probate court for that. If it's in a trust, however, you do not have to open a file with the probate court.
I might add too, I've seen instances where parents have attempted to gift property to children while they're alive. Here again, it's another tax time bomb because inheritors enjoy what we call a step up in basis on inherited property. So if you buy a property for 100,000 and now it's grown to 200,000, and then you die, your kids inherit it with a value of 200,000. They avoid that $100,000 gain. So it's oftentimes better to just hold on to the property and let the heirs inherit it versus giving it to them while you're alive.
Okay. Let me do a quick check-in with Frankie. What are we looking like with time? We can keep going, right?
Frankie
You can
Jones.
keep going. You have time, but I also have a question.
Oh, well, shoot, fire away.
So this goes along with what we were just talking about with property and inheritance. Someone asked the question, if you leave an inheritance to children or grandchildren, is there a tax penalty involved? And it gets added to their income, which puts them in a higher tax bracket. For instance, life insurance.
There's no tax associated with life insurance. Let me see if I understand the question. First of all, when you say children, do you mean minors or adult children?
They weren't specific, so why don't we break that up? If it's different for minors than it is for adult children.
So whenever you leave an inheritance to a minor, you want to put those funds in a trust. Minors are not smart enough. They don't understand money, and you would not want to leave it to a minor outright. You would either want to put it in a trust or appoint a guardian to help them manage the money, manage finances. If you leave it to an adult, so taxes, you don't pay estate taxes unless your estate is over, last time I checked in Illinois, it's like 5.2 million. Federal level estate taxes, 11 million. So we don't have to worry about taxes if we're talking about an estate valued at under $5 million.
Okay.
There's no estate tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that the same thing as an inheritance tax, or no? Is that something different, or was that
It's not really a thing anymore for most of us.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And it would be a tax against the person who's giving the inheritance. For example, there's a limit of a $12,000, I believe. If you're going to give a gift to someone, there's a limit of $12,000 a year. Anything above $12,000 that you give as a gift will be taxable to the person who's giving it, but
as a gift tax.
As a gift tax,
Okay.
but not to the recipient of that gift.
But of the giver of the gift.
Correct.
Okay.
So I can give Regina a gift of $12,000 this year, and I don't have to pay any taxes on that. Of course, Regina, the recipient of the gift, it's got $12,000 free and clear.
Right.
So when you talk about taxes, there are different kinds of taxes.
Yeah, but
And
the notion of estate taxes or gift taxes, that kind of thing, that's
Yeah.
not really a thing anymore since they raised the limits.
Okay,
Most of us
Okay.
don't endure that.
okay,
Oh, good.
okay.
All right, great. So this is all a part of what we're talking about, but the question was asking, are there things I should know about how to protect my inheritance? So is there more you guys can dive a little bit more into in regards to that?
I would venture to say that the laws, the rules, the taxes around that are filled with time bombs. You do it the wrong way, if you name the wrong beneficiary. There's a such thing as a generation skipping tax. If you decide your kids ain't worthy, but your grandkids are worthy, in certain circumstances, you got to pay a generation skipping tax.
Mhm.
So, that's when you call someone like me and I say, hey, here's the deal. And then I can introduce you to Wynette and she draws documents up around it. But we could spend all night talking about all the different time bombs and circumstances under which, you got to worry about what we call slippage in your estate.
Mhm.
Can you explain slippage a little bit more?
That is, if you're going to leave somebody $10 million and for some reason you do it wrong and you lose $1 million of it to taxes or fees or whatever, that $1 million is slippage.
Okay, okay, wonderful. Did you want to chime in on that, Lynette, at all?
No.
Okay, wonderful. So then another question is saying, should I look for a specific kind of advisor or attorney when they're working toward putting all this together?
Yeah, these two right here on the screen.
Mm.
What kind of question is that? What kind of question is that?
No,
Yeah.
but some people may or may not have caught that. They had to come in a little late. So,
Pay attention.
Yeah, you got a financial advisor.
Everybody pay attention.
A financial advisor, obviously, Eric can tell you about, he can review all of your assets with you, talk to you about perhaps how to invest it and how to make the most of your money, that kind of thing. But then when it comes to drawing up the estate plan, then you should talk to an attorney who practices in the area of wills, trusts, and estates.
I'm a second generation financial advisor, and one of the many lessons I took from my father is you want to have a professional who listens more than they talk.
That's good. That's very good. Because when you're sitting down, you want to make sure that you're being heard and that they understand all of the intricacies that go along with your specific case. Everybody's situation is different. So that's very important.
Yeah,
Okay.
in my business, and I bet you it's the same for Wynette. The part that we provide, I hate to say this, is easy. If you tell us in as much detail as possible,
Oh, sure.
what kind of outcome you want. If for some reason we can't get the full outcome and all the textures surrounding it, then we go back and forth a few times. So, it's a large listening. Wynette, you probably ask really open-ended questions and make people talk and dig into the root of what drives them and what they want to happen and what their vision is. Unless and until I have a vision,
Sure.
I can do the math. It's easy then.
Yeah, absolutely. After all, this is their estate plan. It should reflect the wishes and the desires of the person making the plan, not what Wynette wants, but what the individual wants and what's going to be best for them under the circumstances. Before we run out of time, I do want to talk about wills as it relates to people with children, with minor children. It's a great idea to have a will if you have minor children. God forbid you die before your children reach the age of adulthood. Who's gonna raise those children? And so, as a part of your will, you can designate in the will who would be the guardian for your children, either guardian of their person, the person who the person who will take care of the day-to-day needs of the minor, or a guardian over their estate. That would be the person who handles the finances that you leave to your child. The last thing you would want to do is to die and not know who's going to take care of your babies. And and
Yeah.
have people fighting over raising your child, someone who probably doesn't have the child's best interest, but knows the child is going to inherit some money, and
Mhm.
they will raise their hand to raise the child just to get at the money. So it's so important if you have minor children, to take care of your children by drafting a will and indicating in that will who would be responsible for raising your children upon your death.
Oh yeah, no, I'm so glad you touched upon that. Those
Yes.
precious gifts in your life. I'm so happy you were able to touch upon that. Now we do have a couple more questions from the chats. And so we'll go ahead and begin with you, Frankie. You have a
Okay.
question?
Thanks so much, Wynette, for answering that. That was one of the questions that I had received about making sure that you designate minor children and who their guardian will be.
Mhm.
Something else that has come up is for creditors. Will creditors get paid before assets are distributed to your family members if you've got an estate?
Well, when you file, as part of filing your will with the court,
Mhm.
they do. The court can allow a period of time for creditors to make a claim against your estate.
Okay.
The first things that get paid are, your funeral expenses, your medical expenses, if any.
Mhm.
But let me be honest with you, the people, in the Black community, they'll say there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough
Mhm.
in Mama's will to pay the creditors. I mean,
Mhm.
after you pay all the other expenses,
Mhm.
and leave money for the kids, that there's nothing left.
Mhm.
I've not had any clients that have had to go through this process of, filing the will with the court and the creditors, filing a claim. Let's say, for example, if there was a house that's not paid off, well,
Right.
you don't own it, so the mortgage company is just going to come in and say, "Give me my house,"
Mhm. Mhm.
unless you can pay the balance.
Right.
Then it'll be yours. But I've not had that. I've not experienced that a lot, where creditors come in and say, "You owe me $100,000."
Mhm.
Sally Mae might know if you've got student loans.
They
Sally
may
Mae,
find you.
they will
Yeah.
find you.
Okay.
Yeah. Medical bills will sometimes too.
Okay.
Who?
Oh yeah.
Medical providers will,
Those.
Mhm.
because they know when you die. So they
They know when
Right.
you don't.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh wow.
So that,
Wow.
yes, that can happen, but
Okay.
it's not my experience. I can't
It's-
think of it where.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Brenda, did you have a question?
Yes, it's a two-part question. Well, the first one is, I am an only child. Do my parents need to list me as a power of attorney?
They list somebody.
Exactly.
Okay.
Your parents should have power of attorney for healthcare, power of attorney for property. Let me just say, if the only three things you're going to do in terms of estate plan, please put somebody in charge of of your medical care when
Mhm.
you're able to, and of your property if you're not
Mhm.
able to, and have an insurance policy, to take care of your family members or certain things. If those are the only things you do, I think those three things are important to have. If you are not, if you don't have, if you're not acting as the agent of your parents under the power of attorney documents, then who's going to make those decisions? You don't want doctors
Right.
and nurses or other people making decisions about your parents' health care, their mental status, those kinds of things. You certainly should do that. By default, you probably would be the one making the decisions anyway.
Mhm.
If you're an only child, it's important to have that document. But since you're the only child, since you are are the ones that are around your parents, the doctors are going to look to you to make decisions for them. But if you're not there,
Mhm.
you know, somebody will need to make the decision in your parents' stead. And oftentimes it's the doctor who said, there's no one I could talk to. So I decided to do whatever the best medical practice was and perform this procedure.
It's the same thing. It is creating chaos by not just doing this. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of, Lynette said, there's a lot of different scenarios that could occur. You can eliminate all those scenarios and reduce the chaos by just doing it.
Yeah. It's really, it's so easy. The power of attorney forms you can download from, just Google power of attorney statutes in Illinois. The forms are right there. And you fill those out. You on the power of attorney for property, you have to have it notarized. And for healthcare too, I think it's best practice to have those documents notarized. So it's just do it, especially those
It doesn't really
documents.
cost you nothing to do it either.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Was that both of your parts of the question, Brenda?
No, the second one was, how does starting a trust for your kids work?
For the benefit of the kids, or, well, we don't know the answer to that, do we?
It just,
Yeah, it would be for the benefit of the kids.
Right. Well, I didn't know if she was asking if we should set up a trust that's owned by the kids. Well, that wouldn't be right. So go ahead.
it's just state how does starting a trust for your kids work?
Yeah, you could
It's an open-ended question there.
you can certainly create a trust for the children now.
And in creating that for the kids, that would be for them, and if it happens for them, or does that relate back to their parents?
A couple things, and if you're you can create a trust now while the kids are living. You can fund the trust, and then the trust will be for whatever purpose you created it for. If it's for their education, if it's for you name it, you can create a trust and fund it for whatever purpose. You can do that now. If you are drafting a will and you want to leave money to children who are minor, then you can create a trust within the will that says, if my child is not 21 years of old upon my death, then I hereby create a trust, name a trustee for to manage that trust. You can set terms for when kids get the money. They can't just, if you don't want them to have it in a lump sum, you can create milestones for when they are to receive those funds. You got to finish college to get the first installment. And after you finish college, before I turn this money over to you, you're going to have to take a financial literacy class to understand how to invest money. As a matter of fact, I just created did a will for an older person who is leaving a substantial amount of money to her children who don't have her children and grandchildren who will spend every penny that they get. And one of the stipulations for receiving money under the will was that they take and pass and provide a certificate saying that took this financial literacy class. I passed it. I now understand how to manage my money. And again, it's like you're operating from the grave. You're still controlling things. You're still running things from the grave, and that's what you want to do, because again, you have worked so hard for what you have, and
Right.
you don't want your beneficiaries to squander it.
That's driving generational wealth. That's what driving generational wealth looks like.
Exactly.
All the time.
That's awesome. So that was the end of your two-part question, right, Brenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. I went on and on. I'm so sorry.
No, that's
No,
okay.
it's fine. This information is important and it's so valuable.
Absolutely.
I had one last piece that I wanted to ask before we'll go ahead and move into you guys' final words in regard, and it has to do with the not trust, but the oh my God, I had lost my train of thought. The what were we just talking about? The
trust for the kids.
Power of
Power of
attorney.
attorney.
Attorneys. Okay.
Okay.
And so someone told me that the power of attorney is only for when they're living. Does it have anything to do with when they die? Because, like, say, for example, what if someone had money in the bank? How do you do you just have to talk to the people at the bank and show them something? Or does that power of attorney work for that as well?
I think the power of attorney dies with the person, right?
No,
Mm-mm.
it can. In the nice thing about the form that you that's actually built in the statute, there you can sort of indicate in the power of attorney forms how long you want it to last, when you want it to take effect and when you want it to end. You can also make an individual the guardian over the person without having to go to court. So it's pretty detailed, and you can do some things within the power of attorney that goes beyond the life of the individual.
Regina, can I add something? I saw a question pop up in the chat that I think is worth addressing.
Most definitely.
Regarding long-term care.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that is the scourge. The worst thing that can happen to a person is to get sick, can't work, and then don't die. You just hear.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it just burns up all your assets. And so planning for, if you're going to have longevity in your life, you're going to get feeble. And if you start to get feeble, you're going to start eroding your assets to have care. Planning for long-term care is as important in generational wealth as the estate plan. It should be part of the estate plan.
And that's so important. And speaking of a trust, that's one reason to have a trust, to put your assets in that trust. I mean, start early with that instead of waiting till you get to be 70 years old, because of course, Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care in a nursing home. And then that means you'd have to apply for public aid, and public aid is going to say, well, you spend your money first. And then when you run out of money, then we'll kick in, and you don't necessarily want to do that. So then if you create a trust, an irrevocable trust, getting the assets out of your name into the name of the trust, and the trust owns those assets, not you. You're the beneficiary of those assets, but you don't own those assets. Then, that's true asset protection, so that when it's time for you to go into a nursing home, you can apply for public aid, they'll pay for it, and you still have the benefit of those assets.
What's the look back period now? When is it 5 years you got to have it in before you can do that?
Yeah, but I have to do the research. I don't know that it's changed, but last I checked, it was 5 years.
Yeah. So it has to be out of your name in the trust for at least 5 years.
That's right.
You can say you don't own it.
Because they're going to check.
Yeah, that's why. Go ahead. No, I was going to say to the listeners, that's why it's so important that they need people like the both of you available to let them know all these intricate details about long-term care, about all of this different stuff. So most definitely, let's take at this point a couple of minutes to have some final comments. And now we'll do ladies first. Lynette, would you like to go ahead and share with the audience some final comments?
Sure. I just appreciate everyone who is on this call and who took the time to learn. And I just hope that you will continue to learn, and that you will decide, and you will make an affirmative decision to protect your assets, to protect your family going forward. It's not scary. It's essential. It's a part of handling your business, to put these documents in place, to cut down on the chaos, to make your life manageable. It will feel like such a load off when you have your ducks in a row. And this is a part of putting your ducks in a row. Newsflash, you gonna die.
Yeah.
What?
Handle your
You
business.
said what? But yeah, not to giggle as if it's funny, but most definitely it's important and people got to understand that. Eric, did you want to go ahead and take a couple minutes for your final comments?
Yeah, and I'll reiterate again, this is never a fun conversation. I'm with, I don't like sitting in front of clients and others talking about or contemplating their demise. But the reality is, like Winnette said, you can't get out of this thing alive. It's a death mission. You just can't do it. And most of us won't accumulate what I would characterize as uber wealth, billions of dollars. Most of us won't do that. We'll accumulate some cash and some property and do okay for ourselves in a lot of instances, but not uber wealth. The reality is if you want to supercharge your wealth for the next generation, the easiest way to do it is to have significant life insurance. And this may sound a little bit morbid, but if grandmama's healthy, the family need to get together and buy the largest policy that everybody can afford, because it's a bet that you're going to win if she's healthy enough. And make sure you've got life insurance. And the only way you do that, the only way you can take your current cash flow and do that for the next generation is to care. If you care, that's an easy way to inject wealth into the next generation.
Most definitely. Oh my God, this was so valuable in terms of
You're
leaving
just saying that.
legacy. I'm sorry.
You're just saying that.
No.
No. Let me say this too, because I was just gonna add that I tapped my toe into the whole financial planning some years back, and one of the reasons why I had decided to even get involved in that is because of the generational things that have been going on within the Black community, and I felt the importance of leaving a legacy and trying to figure out ways to create generational wealth. So we most definitely appreciate all you guys answers. And so at this point, we're going to go ahead. Did you want to go ahead and introduce the raffle, Frankie?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much, Regina, for being the MC. Eric, Winnette, wonderful information. Nothing but praise happening in the chat. I'm getting text messages. Everyone is very, very grateful for the information that you're imparting. For our panelists who are still on the call, listen, there were so many questions, we couldn't get to them all. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to take all of those questions and we're going to make sure we've got answers. We'll work with our panelists to make sure we have answers for you, and we will email those answers out. There's also been some questions about whether or not you can contact the panelists. They have provided their contact information. Please feel free to reach out to them if you've got questions. In the presentation earlier, there was a slide. Eric will provide free access to their financial planning system. You just have to send him an email. So I'm going to send you that information so you know how to contact him. We just want to make sure that our community, they have all the resources they need to make sure that they can protect their wealth and create a legacy for their family. So before we go, we want to make sure that we handle our business with our raffle. We have $200 that will go toward estate planning with Miss Winnette Head. She's going to help someone, the lucky winner. So I'm going to introduce Nina Hunter. Nina, if you can start the raffle for me, please.
Thank you, Soror Frankie, and thank you to our panelists tonight. I truly found everything you share with us very informative, and appreciate you all giving us your time. Thank you to all who are in attendance tonight. And as you know, you must be present to win. And so if you are the winner, please make sure you raise your hand or put a note in the chat. Or if you're joining us via YouTube, please put a note in the comments so that we know that you are here. And so with that, I am going to share my screen. Okay, can you all see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and now here we go. Soror Rhonda Lay, are you still with us?
I'm checking to see if she's still on. She was on earlier. Rhonda, are you still out there?
Yes, she is. I do see her name under the.
Outstanding. We
Well,
have a winner.
congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you, Nina. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Congratulations, Rhonda. So happy you won the raffle. You've got the contact information for Renette. I will make sure I send it to you, and we will make sure that that $200 gets over to Renette to go toward your consultation on estate planning.
And she just answered, so she's here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know we're running a little over time. Again, want to thank our panelists, want to thank everyone who joined us this evening. The survey will pop up momentarily. Please, please take just a couple of minutes to fill out the survey. It really does help us as we're putting together our programming. Stay tuned. We have more events in 2022 from economic development, so there will be more information that gets sent out, and we look forward to hosting you in future events. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good evening.